Ever wondered what it takes to get cheese from, say, Italy to your local shop?
Or how about olive oil's journey from Greece to your kitchen?
It's a global dance of logistics and regulations.
And you've got to have some serious business savvy.
Today's deep dive,
We're becoming import-export masters.
focusing on the world of dairy and edible oils.
And you'd be surprised how much goes on behind the scenes.
That's what makes this so interesting.
It's a fascinating blend of market trends and cultural nuances.
We're not just talking about moving stuff around.
Even things like weather patterns can throw a wrench in the works.
It's about understanding a whole system.
Luckily, we've got RoleCatcher's career guide as our roadmap.
Fresh off a December 2023 update.
So they describe an import-export manager as this linchpin, making sure everything flows smoothly, legally, of course.
And that it turns a profit.
What always gets me about these descriptions is they use terms like coordinating parties.
But what's the reality of this job?
Forget the image of someone chained to a desk. You could be on a factory floor one day, making sure a shipment of Greek yogurt is up to snuff.
Okay.
And the next, you're at the docks watching tankers of sunflower oil get loaded up.
Okay. That's way more dynamic than I pictured. And I bet those international partners mentioned in the guide mean you're not just emailing.
You're actually hopping on planes to meet suppliers face-to-face.
Right.
Absolutely.
Like, what's that like?
Think about in negotiating a contract for Italian cheese.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe over a plate of pasta, who knows. But this job isn't all glamorous travel.
Right.
RoleCatcher is upfront about the demands.
Yeah.
Long hours, constant pressure to meet deadlines.
Oh, yeah.
And regulations that seem to shift like sand dunes.
It sounds like you need nerves of steel and some serious multitasking skills to juggle all that. RoleCatcher's guide dives into the skill set needed.
And some of it's not what you'd expect.
Yeah, like what?
Obviously, you need to think critically, listen carefully, be organized.
Sure.
That's a given. But get this. Negotiation and persuasion are ranked super high,
Really?
both at 51%.
Wow.
It makes sense when you think about it.
Yeah.
An import-export manager is constantly working with different people, each with their own agenda.
Right.
Suppliers want the best price.
Sure.
Buyers want the best quality.
Yeah.
Customs officials need everything by the book.
You've got to be a master of compromise.
Finding that sweet spot where everyone feels good about the deal.
Right.
Exactly. And here's the thing.
Yeah.
Those negotiation and persuasion skills, they're not just confined to this one career.
That's true.
Master those, and you're set for pretty much any field where you're dealing with people.
It's like a crash course in diplomacy with some high-stakes cheese trading thrown in. But let's talk about the knowledge base needed. Are we talking spreadsheets and shipping routes, or is there more to it?
It's definitely more than just logistics.
Right.
RoleCatcher's guide really stresses that you need a deep understanding of international trade policies. We're talking tariffs, quotas, trade agreements.
Yeah.
Mess those up, and you're looking at major headaches,
Yeah.
not to mention lost profits.
So it's like walking a tightrope
Yeah.
between making sure the deal works financially
Right.
and navigating a maze of regulations.
Exactly.
And it's not just about knowing the rules today, is it?
No.
These things are constantly changing.
Exactly. Staying up to date is crucial in this field.
Oh, absolutely.
For example, remember a few years back when those new dairy tariffs were imposed?
Yeah.
Companies had to scramble to adjust their sourcing and pricing strategies.
Oof, yeah, I remember reading about that. It threw the whole industry for a loop.
Yeah.
Makes you realize how much knowledge is power in this line of work.
For sure.
RoleCatcher also talks about market analysis being key.
Right.
What does that look like in practice? Is it just staring at spreadsheets all day?
Not quite.
It's
Think
not-
of it more like being a trend spotter.
Okay.
Let's say you're importing olive oil. You need to be aware of things like weather conditions in Spain or Greece.
Right.
That could affect olive harvests,
Yeah.
which then impacts your supply and pricing.
Okay.
Or on the demand side,
Yeah.
are consumers suddenly obsessed with avocado oil?
Oh, interesting.
That could mean you need to adjust your import strategy.
So you've got to have this global perspective,
Yeah,
always thinking several steps ahead of the game.
absolutely.
It's like playing chess on a worldwide scale.
Exactly. And it's not just about reacting to change.
Okay.
It's also about anticipating it.
Okay.
RoleCatcher actually suggests subscribing to industry publications like International Trade Today.
Okay.
They highlight that staying informed helps you stay competitive.
It sounds like continuous learning is a must in this career.
For sure.
Speaking of which, let's talk about where this career can take you.
Okay.
RoleCatcher lays out a pretty clear progression path in their guide.
Right. You could start as a junior import-export coordinator,
Okay.
focusing on the nuts and bolts of documentation,
Yeah.
shipment tracking, and coordinating with logistics partners.
Entry level, but you're in the thick of it.
Yeah,
Getting your hands dirty, right?
precisely. From there, you might move up to an import-export specialist,
Okay.
where you'd be handling the entire import-export process,
Wow.
negotiating contracts, even doing risk assessments.
Oh, wow.
Imagine a scenario where there's a sudden outbreak of foot and mouth disease.
Oh, no.
In a country you usually import cheese from,
Right.
an import-export specialist would need to assess the risk,
Mhm.
find alternative suppliers,
Yeah.
and make sure everything complies with safety regulations.
That's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've tackled that crisis.
Right.
Where do you go from there on the career ladder?
The next step would be senior import-export manager.
Right.
At this level, you're not just managing processes, you're
Right.
leading a team, building relationships with key partners, and making sure your company is following all those international trade rules.
So you've got to be both a big picture thinker
Yeah.
and detail-oriented,
Right.
making sure everything runs like a well-oiled machine.
Exactly.
What's the peak of this career path, according to RoleCatcher?
They highlight the Director of Global Trade Operations as the top rung.
Yo.
Imagine overseeing the entire global trade operation for a major dairy company.
Wow.
Setting the strategy for imports and exports, managing a team of managers and specialists.
Right.
You're calling the shots on a global scale.
Wow. From coordinating shipments to leading global trade strategy, it's quite a journey.
It is.
It really shows the kind of growth that's possible in this field.
Absolutely.
Even if someone isn't actively looking for a job right now,
Yeah.
RoleCatcher has this interview prep section that I found super helpful.
Oh, what kind of stuff do they have in there?
They actually give you real interview questions specific to this role.
Interesting.
It's like peeking behind the curtain to see what hiring managers are looking for.
That's so smart. I'm always curious about the kinds of questions they ask in this field.
Yeah.
Give me an example.
Okay, so one question they have is, imagine there's a sudden surge in demand for Greek yogurt in a new market.
Okay.
How would you adjust your import strategy to meet that demand?
That's a great question.
Right.
It really tests your ability to think on your feet
Yeah.
and apply your knowledge of logistics, market trends, and even cultural factors.
Even if you're not job hunting right now,
Yeah.
thinking through these questions can help you see where you might have knowledge gaps.
Yeah.
Or areas you want to develop further in your career.
It's always good to be prepared.
And here's something else cool.
Yeah.
RoleCatcher doesn't just focus on the title Import-Export Manager.
Right.
They have a whole section on alternative titles.
Interesting. So what we're talking about here applies to other roles too.
Absolutely.
Like what?
Think of supply chain manager, logistics coordinator, international business development manager.
Oh,
They all draw on a lot of the same skills and knowledge we've been discussing.
that's a great point. It really broadens the scope of this information.
Yeah.
So much of what we've talked about, negotiation, market analysis, understanding regulations, that stuff is valuable in any field that deals with international business.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground,
We have.
responsibilities, skills, career paths,
Right?
even interview tips.
Yeah.
All through the lens of this RoleCatcher guide.
It's a great resource.
But I think there's a bigger picture here,
Okay.
something we haven't touched on yet.
What do you mean?
Well, we've talked about the how of the job,
Right.
but what about the why behind the trade itself?
Oh, I see.
What's driving the demand for these products?
Right.
What are the implications of shipping food all over the world?
You're right. There's a whole other layer to explore there.
Yeah.
The global trade of food products like dairy and edible oils is tied to bigger issues like sustainability, environmental impact, and even ethical sourcing. It's a complex web.
It's like we've been so focused on the logistics of getting that wheel of Parmesan from Italy to our table,
Yeah,
we haven't stopped to think about the bigger journey.
exactly. And it's a journey that starts long before a ship ever leaves port.
Right.
Think about the environmental impact, for example.
Yeah.
Shipping tons of cheese or olive oil across continents,
Yeah.
that burns a lot of fuel, which means greenhouse gas emissions.
Right. And it's not just the transportation.
Right.
What about the land used to produce these foods?
Absolutely.
The guide briefly mentions palm oil. I know that's been a hot topic in terms of deforestation.
Absolutely. Palm oil production has exploded to meet global demand,
Yeah.
but it's come at a cost.
Yeah.
Clearing rainforests to plant palm trees has a huge impact on biodiversity and contributes to climate change.
Right.
And then there's the dairy industry.
Yeah.
Cows require a lot of land for grazing and feed production,
Right.
which can lead to deforestation as well.
So it's this complex equation.
It is.
Balancing the demand for these products
Yeah,
with the environmental impact of producing and transporting them.
for sure.
And it feels like consumers are more aware of these issues now than ever before.
Definitely. People want to know where their food comes from,
Right.
how it's produced, and what kind of impact it has on the planet.
Of course.
They're looking for more sustainable options,
Yes.
whether it's choosing dairy alternatives like almond milk or oat milk,
Right.
or seeking out olive oil produced using traditional, less intensive methods.
Which puts the import-export manager in an interesting position, don't you think?
How so?
They're not just facilitating the movement of goods.
Right.
They're potentially influencing the types of goods being traded.
Exactly. As consumers demand more transparency and sustainability,
Yeah.
import-export managers have a real opportunity to push for change within their companies and supply chains.
Okay.
They can advocate for certifications like Fair Trade or Rainforest Alliance, partner with suppliers who prioritize ethical sourcing, and even explore more sustainable transportation options,
Okay.
like using biofuels or optimizing shipping routes to reduce emissions.
So it's almost like they're becoming sustainability champions in a way,
In a way, yeah.
using their knowledge and influence
Yeah.
to make the system more responsible.
Precisely. And that's what I find so fascinating about this field.
Yeah.
It's not just about moving products around.
Right.
It's about understanding the interconnectedness of global markets, environmental concerns,
Yeah.
and ethical considerations.
It's like that saying,
What's that?
with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
We've really gone on a journey today from the nitty-gritty details of import-export procedures
Yeah.
to these broader questions about the future of food and trade.
It's been a true deep dive. And as you said at the beginning,
Yeah.
it's not just about what we find on the supermarket shelves.
Right.
It's about understanding the forces that brought those products to us. The decisions made by farmers, manufacturers, shippers, even consumers, it all adds up.
It really makes you think twice about that next bite of cheese or drizzle of olive oil, doesn't it?
It does.
There's a whole world behind those everyday staples.
There is.
And the people who navigate that world, the
Yeah.
import-export managers,
Right.
they play a crucial role in shaping it.
Absolutely.
So next time you're enjoying a meal, take a moment to consider the journey those ingredients took to get to your plate.
I think that's great advice.
They might surprise you.